Hi again, everybody. My name is Greg Anderson, and this is the Good Timekeeping Show with Greg Anderson. Today, I'm out in the family playhouse with the Geochron. The Geochron and I would like to talk about solar-powered watches and essentially some discussion about the best ways to keep your solar-powered watches charged up and running correctly. And just FYI, today, I have the entire playhouse running off-grid. So we're using electricity, and I'm actually getting the electricity from an Anchor 535 powerhouse power station, a little self-contained battery unit with lithium iron phosphate batteries in it. And so that's running the entire thing right now. And I have a couple of solar panels plugged into that device to kind of charge it up as we go. So we're using and charging, we're getting everything off of solar right now, completely off grid. And I'll talk about that more in an upcoming video if you'd like to hear more about that. But just thought that was kind of fun. We're completely off grid right now using our electricity. And what about these solar powered watches? Now, I know there's more than one manufacturer that makes solar powered watches. I happen to have the most experience with Casios. All of my solar powered watches are Casio watches, G-Shock watches. I have some non-G-Shock Casio watches that also are solar powered, tough solar. So, but that's my experience. G-Shock and non-G-Shock Casios, solar powered. Okay, so some thoughts about the best way to maintain these watches. Now, I know I've got a couple of watches that when they first arrived, they were completely drained, no power whatsoever. And so the way I revived those, and I made a video about reviving one of them, is I stuck them under a bright light for a little while until they got going. Then I actually stuck them out in the direct sunlight and let them charge up from there. And once they got enough of a charge that I could actually access the functions, I was able to set them to the right time zone, and they were pretty good to go after that. Maybe just a few more sessions in very strong light to charge them up. Now, I've talked about charging up watches in direct sunlight, and I think I need to be a little more careful about when I talk about that, because one thing that I think you should try to avoid is overheating your watch. Now, a lot of times I'm able to put the watch out in a place where it gets direct sunlight, but there's good airflow in that place, or maybe it's the winter time, and so that direct sunlight isn't necessarily generating a lot of heat. But there have been other times, especially just recently, even on a morning, a sunny summer morning, when it kind of warms up quickly, I can leave a watch like this out in the sun, and even early in the morning, it overheats. And when I say overheat, what I'm referring to is sometimes the LCD will have kind of a dark haze, a dark fog that sort of spreads out on the screen until the whole thing is dark. Or in the case of a negative LCD, imagine the colors of the characters. Imagine that lighter fog going and just fogging everything out until all you see is a blank screen. So it can be either a dark blank screen or a light blank screen, depending on whether you're using, a negative or a positive LCD. So I don't like when that happens. Now, in the Casio owner's manual, it talks about what happens if the watch overheats like that and the LCD screen darkens out or lights out, whatever it happens to be. And the Casio manual acts like it's not a really big deal. You want to cool the watch down. You want to take it to a place where it can cool down. Of course, you don't want to wear it if it's too hot, because that could burn you and hurt you. But just let it cool down and it'll come back to normal. And I think, okay, yes, that's true. But I have to think that long term, if this happens a lot, there's got to be some kind of damage that you're going to do to your LCD if you're letting it overheat that much. So I would say try to avoid that. Now, some people, they have a trick to avoid that. And you can try this. I haven't tried this myself, but I think it works, because these Casio watches I have are all pretty well water resistant, especially the G-Shocks, 200 meter water resistant. So what you can do is you can take the watch and you can put it in a glass of water. Okay, just a little small container of water, clear glass or whatever, and then put that in the sun. So the watch will get plenty of light, but the sun is not able to heat up that water very much, just sitting out there, sitting on your back deck or wherever the sunlight happens to be. So yeah, some people swear by that. They think that's great. And if that works for you, that's fine. Now, oh, I should show you. I have an example. I didn't do this on purpose, but the other day, I had some watches out and they started to overheat to where I got that kind of that dark fog over the screen. And so I took them out of the sunlight right away. And within a few seconds, that fog started to clear and the screen started to look normal. So, and then one watch in particular, it was a little bit hotter. So I had enough time to take a picture right before it went back to normal. So I want to show you what this looks like. And again, I'm not going to do this on purpose to give you a full example here on this video, but you can see this is what happens, and maybe you've seen this happen to your watches. So number one, take it out of the place where it's too hot, let it cool down. Let it cool down nice and easy. Don't like stick it right into ice water, because those kinds of drastic temperature changes are never good for much of anything, right? So things crack and things, you just don't want to do that. So yeah, that's what happened when my one watch overheated, and that's you see the results there. Also, one time I had a watch overheat because it was a cool wintry day. I thought maybe it would be safe to leave this on the dashboard of my car in the bright sunlight for a little while I was busy doing something else. And it turned out that was too much. Now, I know that in the summertime, I've left a thermometer in my car to see just how hot it gets when it's sitting there parked with the windows up and the sun is shining, and it gets above 145 degrees. I'm not sure how much more than 145 degrees, because I think that's the limit of the thermometer I was using. It was a digital thermometer, but it showed that the high that it recorded was 145 degrees. So at least 145 degrees in a car that's all closed up, with sun shining in the windows and no covers on the windows or anything like that. So you got to be very careful. That's, of course, there are tragic and terrible stories of what happens when a person or a pet gets left in a car in these hot conditions. I don't even want to go there. So as far as simple electronic devices and other things you might leave in the car, there's obviously some potential damage. So you do want to avoid that. Now, some folks would maybe stick a watch on a windowsill where it gets some direct sunlight, but it's still inside the room that's not too hot. I would still keep an eye on that just to make sure it's not overheating. Just every now and then take a look at that LCD and make sure it hasn't fogged over. So I'm not sure the best thing to tell you, other than I don't think you can really go wrong with too much light, but you can go wrong with too much heat. So if you have an LED, for example, some sort of LED light fixture that's nice and bright but doesn't heat up very much, maybe you could put the watch close to that. I have some video lights that are LED, and I've had some good luck doing it that way. Normally, I'm able to just kind of get it maybe some indirect sunlight and a nice bright source of sunlight without heating it up, and that works pretty well too. But now I've seen ads online, listings for a device that you can use that is kind of like you've taken the top of an LED flashlight and you put it in a little base there so that you can put your solar-powered watch face right down on this thing, and it'll shine a LED light straight up into your watch. And some people swear by those. And the reason they like them so well is since they're LED, they stay cool, they don't use a lot of power, and they will charge that watch up pretty well with a bright light. But I saw that and I thought, well, I don't need that. That's kind of pointless. I just use the sun or use, ambient light. I don't need that other thing, But again, some people swear by it. And I think, well, maybe if you have lots of solar-powered watches and you tend to leave them in the dark for months at a time, maybe you need to top it off before you wear it. But I don't know. If you have one of those devices and you love it, more power to you. But I don't think I need it. And so far, I've gone several years now with dozens of these solar-powered watches, and I haven't needed to have a device like that. So again, that's an option if you're really worried about keeping your watch topped off all the time. The other thing I wanted to say, though, is that you don't really need to worry about keeping your watch topped off all the time. So I'm going to show you a couple of watches I have here. These are G-Shock squares, okay? So this one here has a little low, medium, and high indicator right on the face to tell you if the battery is low, medium, or high. And this one is Bluetooth, so you don't have that on the face, but you can see it on the app. Okay, and if you look at it on the app, it has kind of a little scale that you can see, the charge level going up or down all along the scale here. It's not just 3 settings. It's kind of a nice spectrum there. And I know that there are some people that get really worried because their watch isn't fully charged, just, pegging the scale all the time at 100%. And I think that you don't need to worry about that. Let's think of an example. When I'm driving around in my Toyota Corolla, okay, if I fill that thing up with gas, I've got about a 400-mile range, sometimes a little bit more, before it would be completely, down to where the little light comes on that says you need to buy more gas for the car. Okay, so let's just say it's a 400-mile range. Okay, now let's just say that the low, medium, and high on here, I don't really know what percentage it would be that it registers medium. What range is that? Is that from 20 to 50%? Is that from 25 to 70%? What is the medium range on here? I don't really know. But I'm going to guess that the high range on this is probably about 80% or more. And for the sake of argument, let's just pretend that it really is 80% or more is going to show up as high. So then on this Bluetooth one, when you look at that full scale and it looks like it's down 10% from absolute full, and you get worried that it's not absolute full, remember, if you had a watch like this other one that just said high all the time, even though it was kind of fluctuating between 80 and 100% all the time, you wouldn't worry about it. So why should you worry about it on your Bluetooth that it's not pegged all the way to 100% all the time? It's like in my Toyota Corolla. If I had the gasoline tank full and then I used 20% of the gasoline, that would mean I went about 80 miles. So, for that first 80 miles, am I really going to worry about it? That, the tank isn't 100% full. It's down 20%. I got to go fill it up. Every 80 miles, I'm going to go fill it up. No, I don't think so. And I don't think you need to worry about it quite so much on your solar powered watches either. So like I said, some people are really bothered that they don't see right on the screen on their Bluetooth watch that energy scale all the time. And I think you don't have to worry about it. As long as it's somewhere in the medium to high range, as long as all of the functions are working properly, you've got enough power. And if you need to just make sure that you don't store it in a dark drawer somewhere, if you're not wearing the watch, leave it out somewhere where it'll just get some room light all the time, I think you're going to be fine. I know sometimes with the watch collector community, and I'll be a part of it, you get a little bit of that OCD thing going on. And, with me, maybe it's I'm a little too particular about making sure the watches are synchronized. So now I have a lot of watches that do that automatically. I'm not quite so particular about them being at a high charge all the time. I know some people are. And I guess what I'm saying is you could probably relax about that and not worry about it. You're fine. You're fine. Your watch is fine. Just enjoy it. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the battery that's inside this watch. Now, some people want to be real particular about that and say, well, it's not really a battery, it's a capacitor. And I don't know for sure. All I know is if you ever have to replace one, just make sure you get the right thing, okay? It is a rechargeable power source that's in there, and eventually, I suppose it will wear out. Now, some people get really upset about that. They say, well, I think that maybe that rechargeable power source in there, I'll call it a battery, and forgive me if that bothers you, but what if the battery's starting to wear out? Then what do I do? What do I do? Should I just change it? Should I just change it like every 5 years? Is that what I should do? And I say, relax. If it's running, if it's working, you're fine. Now, every now and then you'll hear stories about someone, I bought a watch and it doesn't work at all. It's supposed to be rechargeable. It doesn't hold a charge at all. Never works. Okay, then that might be something, you have to take it to an expert and have them figure out what's wrong with it. But I have, what can I say? I have dozens and dozens of these rechargeable watches, solar powered watches from Casio, and I've never had one that wouldn't hold a charge. So I'm no expert on what do you do when it doesn't work right, because I have not had that problem. My oldest solar-powered Casio G-Shock watch, I bought it, what is now over 16 years ago, and I have never had to open up the case to do anything for maintenance inside of it. Especially, I've never had to change the battery inside that watch. So what's my trick? Well, I try to keep it, I try to use it a lot. I try to make sure that it gets plenty of light when I'm not using it. And I've never had it go all the way down to zero and back up again. I haven't had that, going cycling over and over and over that way. And I think that has led to some good health, long-term health on that particular battery. So that's my advice to you. Use it. Make sure when you're not using it, it's getting plenty of light and it's keeping itself charged. And I think you can expect that thing to go for well over a decade. And again, I would not worry about changing that battery if the watch is working. Okay. If it's not working, that's another story. And I personally don't have a lot of experience with that, other than first thing I would do is give it a good dose of light and see if that'll charge it up. And if that's it, and it keeps running after that, don't worry. But don't get so jumpy about wanting to change the battery on a regular basis when it doesn't need it. Okay? That's all I have to say about that. And well, I hope I gave you some good advice, some good tips. I mean, we can discuss this if you've got anything that works better for you and that I haven't talked about. Yeah, let's share these ideas. But all I can say is, they've worked really well for me, and by following a few simple habits, I think they'll keep working for a long, long time to come. All right, it's the real deal. When they say tough solar, what does that mean? To me, that means you never have to change the batteries. Maybe I will after over 16 years, but so far, it's running great. Okay. And I guess that's all I have to say today. Now I'm going to have more episodes talking about more watches, talking about more clocks, talking about more solar power, lots of things to talk about. So I hope you will come back soon for another episode of the Good Timekeeping Show.